Hi there, this is Izzy with a discussion of some potting media and some divisions and how well each one of them has done. So not that long ago, I ended up splitting my Maxillaria rufescens. It was a slightly traumatic split, that one. And also my noID, probably Oncidium Twinkle. And each of the divisions I put into two types of growing media. So the Oncidium Twinkle I've got in a mixture of sphagnum moss for this individual, which as you can see has put out these great little flowers, and they're slightly vanilla scented, which is pretty cool. So there's some sphagnum moss, and this one's putting out some flowers as well. This one is in a bark and seramis mixture, you can see down there. The Maxillaria rufescens, on the other hand, I potted up in sphagnum moss and bark chips. What were these in before? The Maxillaria rufescens was in a mix of bark and sphagnum, and I wanted to know whether that mix was the right way to go, or whether I should actually move to more damp or less damp conditions. I can't remember what the probably Oncidium Twinkle was potted in before, but I'll have a look. I think it could have been some sphagnum moss, but I can't fully remember. As you can see, across the board, all these plants are doing well. And it's clear that the Oncidium Twinkle is doing well in both sphagnum moss and in this bark and ceramic mixture. There's evidence of roots growing in the bark and ceramis, and there's also evidence of good growth, although I can't see the roots through this pot. In this one, the bulbs are plump in all cases, and over here we've got great evidence of new bulb growth on this one. So this one's putting its energy into bulbs rather than into flowers. We've got not much evidence of accordion leaves in the new growths as well, so clearly this plant is hydrated and is doing well in both of these media. So going forward, I'd probably pot this one into bark and ceramis, because this is a medium that I'm struggling to use, and if this orchid likes it, then great, I'll just leave it in this one. But I'll also get rid of a few of these orchids because they are certainly taking up quite a bit of space in my growing environment, and I don't have that much space to go around. But let's just take another look at these cute little flowers. They're really sweet and they come out in a really big bunch. These flowers are the reason why I think it's a twinkle, but I did buy it with no name tag whatsoever from a random plant shop. So truly I'm not 100% sure exactly what it is, but it does look twinkle-ish. Now, Maxillaria rufescens. I've had this plant for years and it didn't flower and it didn't flower and it didn't flower until I split it, repotted it, and this one did amazingly. It put out, I think, 3 flowers in the end. There's last little stumps of them hanging around inside this media. So this plant did incredibly well. You can see it's paid the cost a little bit in terms of new growth. So it's got 2, yes, looks like a maximum of 2 new growths coming on this one, but evidence of root growth all around. By comparison, I put 2 of the other divisions into sphagnum moss, and these ones are clearly having the time of their lives. Look, 4 new growths coming off these 3 pseudo bulbs, and some great evidence of roots going right down into that medium. They are really enjoying life in sphagnum moss. Now, root growth was a little bit stunted actually in the bark, so they did adapt faster to the pure sphagnum moss than they did to the bark, which could be a humidity thing. As you can see, this one of the smallest divisions, has been set back a little bit by all of this and is catching up now with all those roots and everything. But yeah, this one didn't intend for it to be so small. It certainly struggled because of its size, but I think also because of the medium. So I took the Maxillaria rufescens out of a mixture of bark and sphagnum moss, and I think there are some advantages to the sphagnum moss in terms of the bulbs doing really well. But there are also some advantages in terms of the bark mix. For example, this is the first time that this plant flowered. And in addition, it's a little bit easier to keep drier. So I think the optimum for this plant could be the bark and sphagnum moss that I had it in the first instance. So I think one of these I might take back to bark and sphagnum eventually when it needs a repot. But again, I don't need 4 Maxillaria rufescenses in my collection, so I think I might pare this down a little bit. So there you go. Probably preferring the seramis mixture for the Oncidium Twinkles, and preferring probably a mix of bark and sphagnum, or possibly bark to induce flowering, in the Maxillaria rufescenses. But in all honesty, they both love the sphagnum moss. They love that extra moisture. And so they'd be perfectly happy in any of the media that I've got them in or that I did have them in. So I'm not entirely sure what the result of this experiment is, except to say that all of this works and just produces slightly differently shaped and differently adapting plants. So there you go. Thanks ever so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed today. If you like this video, give it a like. If you'd like to hear more, just subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.